Now it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. When a hemorrhage in Dan McQueen's brain left him unable to walk or talk at age 28, the road back to work would take determination, patience, and strategic support from his company. Dan is here to share his story with us today.
So, Brandy, thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and thank you very much for the invitation to speak at the group today. I'm a keynote speaker based in Vancouver, BC, Canada. Speak on change management, resilience, and motivation. I've lived through this experience, and I want to share my lessons learned with your group. This has been bespoke for the audience today to help you navigate the world after an injury back to work. Let's dive into it, shall we? Excellent. So, who are you? OHS, established in 1984. It's a national media source for occupational health safety professionals. OHS delivers comprehensive, relevant, and timely information. Those responsible for decisions about workplace health and safety. As I mentioned, this presentation has been made bespoke for this group to help you navigate the space after an injury or return to work situation. We're going to carry a through line through my talk today. This is Epictetus. He's what they call OG Stoic philosopher. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters. I'll say that again. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters. We're going to carry this through line through the talk today. Outline of the talk today, medical rap sheet. What happened to me? How can I speak about workplace injury, workplace recovery, back to work in any sort of capacity? It's kind of a bold thing to speak on, right? Next, we'll dive into resilient mindset, how you can foster this. And the key word being foster. You can create this and help build this up for your employees. Last one's return to work framework. We're going to dive into a AAA framework that I built to kind of talk through how that can help your employees get back to work and what you can do to help support your employees, more importantly. What's your role in this whole process? Before this happened, I was a healthy and active 28-year-old guy living and working in London, England. Here are some photos of me when I lived in Sweden before I moved to London. Cruising through the docks in Malmo, Sweden on the left-hand side. Fishing up at Nacka, on the right-hand side. Started having these headaches that were horrible. And they got worse after a few weeks. Taking painkillers like candy for them, my head was pounding. Headaches got so bad, I was on the tube one day. The tube's how you zigzag around London. Lumbering towards Nine Hill Gate tube station on the district line. It's a slow roll for those of you that know. Headaches were so bad. My vision started to go starry, and I saw stars. And then slowly started to fade to black. It was a race to see who could arrive at the station first, me or the blindness. Arrived at Nine Hill Gate tube station, stepped onto the platform, mind the gap, and the lights went out. I couldn't see, I was blind. Now put yourself in my shoes for a second. Able-sided guy your whole life, 28-year-old, ruggedly handsome and all hell. All of a sudden you can't see, you're blind, you're on a station in London and the station is swirling around you. What do you do? What do you think? How do you feel? I'll tell you what I did, and that's absolutely nothing. I stood there and I thought, and I thought, and I thought some more. How am I getting out of this pickle? I'm thinking, this is pretty bad. After the longest 3 minutes of my life, my vision came back. And I carried on my day. But the next day, I went storming back into A&E. A&E is accident emergency in the UK. I told them what had happened. I was blinded at a tube station in London. What's going on here? This is buggered. What's happening? Let's figure this out. They ran some tests. They thought it was vertigo again, and they sent me home. On the way out, they told me I could always get my eyes checked by an optometrist. Optometrist, I thought that's kind of odd, but you know what? At this stage in the game, I'm happy to pull at straws. Next day, the headaches were back with a vengeance, and I found myself in Mr. Patel's chair. He was midway through a routine exam when he stops it, excused himself from the room, and he came back a few minutes later with a sealed envelope, which he handed to me. He told me to go directly to Moorfields Hospital, which I did. Well, OHS, tell a lie. I stopped at home first to grab a Jack Reacher book by Lee Child, a phone charger and a bite to eat. Then I arrived at Moorfields Hospital, handed them the envelope. They ran the same test there again, then escalated me up to Charing Cross Hospital. We're getting somewhere. I'm thinking, this is positive. This is a good sign. We're figuring out what's going on here. Now, it turns out I had a dangerous buildup of pressure in my brain caused from a non-cancerous cyst in my pineal gland. This prevented the fluid from my brain to drain as it normally would. Now it turns out I required emergency brain surgery tomorrow. Now it turns out my world's about to change altogether. After a frantic back and forth with the folks in Canada, the last text message my mom received reads, "I'll see you soon, Mom. Think I'll have a new haircut next time I see you. Love, Dan." Mom's in the air flying to London on June 21st, 2014. I'm on the operating table. Something goes horribly wrong, and I have a massive bleed in the brain, a brain hemorrhage. The cyst burst when they operated. Mom lands and finds I'm in critical condition. I was in a coma for 4 weeks, but was in unconsciousness for months after this. Things were pretty dicey, touch and go. When all was said and done, I was learning how to walk, talk, and smile again. Did a trial session for this in my old work at Hootsuite. Told me to make it clear how low things got, so I made it low, low, low. To say things were in a bad way would be an understatement. It was a constant battle and intensive care to keep me alive in those early weeks. I was in critical condition. My parents were told I may not make it. Alarms constantly went off as blood pressure spiked or heart rate too high. The brain hemorrhage had damaged parts of the brain that regulate heart rate, body systems. I was all out of whack. These used ice blankets above and below me to keep my core temperature down. This led to violent shivering. Family says it's horrible to watch. Hooked up to 13 tubes and hoses and on various things giving me medicine. It was dire straits, and my parents were told I may not make it. Here's a photo from my time in intensive care unit, or, as we called it on the ward, the ICU. You'll notice the photos from behind. I had a lot of tubes around my face. My parents told me this wasn't one of my stronger looks, so I'm glad this is not immortalized. Thank you very much, Mom. Now came time to learn to walk. Wolfson Rehab Center. I had to wear a splint over my left leg. A splint's like a cast above your leg muscle. Gently tease the muscle back into shape. Leg had atrophied in the coma. Now, before we go there, I want to draw your attention to one thing. Take a close look at this photo. Some of you might call this avant-garde. Others may be fashion forward. I call this my confused pirate look. Does that eye patch look right to you? No. Well off piste, well off piste. But this splint, I wore this splint for the first time through the night, no issue, no stress. This will be easy, I thought. This will be easy. Hinting it's not going to be easy, right? The second night, after 20 minutes, it was painful. After 30 minutes, it was dreadful. After 40 minutes, it was unbearable. I buzzed the nurse, take the splint off my leg because I can't handle the pain. But I tell them tomorrow we're in this for an hour. I'm a walker, I can handle the pain. Big talk. Third night, they wrapped my leg, tied off of the ankle. They go patrol the Wolfson ward. Now, the Wolfson ward was an L shape, right? Short on this side, long on this side. Short on this side, long on this side. They leave me in that hospital room that smells like only a hospital room can smell. Sanitized, sterilized. It's clean, but you're wondering what sort of atrocities have been committed to the guys that love any sustenance. After 10 minutes, the leg's painful. After 20 minutes, the leg's dreadful. After 30 minutes, the leg's unbearable. I start passing the clicker back and forth, trying to distract myself from the pain. Now, I've got double vision from the brain injury, which means I get the pleasure of seeing two and all of you today, so thank you very much for that. But it means I'm groping around in this clicker. I can't really see this. As the pain ratchets up, my throat gets more enthusiastic. Till eventually, inevitably, I drop the clicker and it lands on the hardly only floor 3.5 feet down on the ground. Sugar, I say. I didn't say sugar. Look over the edge of the bed. I can see the clicker on the floor looking back at me. If I get that clicker, I can stop this pain. I can end this monstrosity. Only problem was, fall from that height might break my arm. In fact, I figured about a 50-50 chance of breaking my arm. A coin flip, not the best odds. I changed tack. I'm trying to untie the splint, but it's tied up at the ankle, not at the hip. I can't reach up far down. I'm not that flexible. Help! Help, I yell. The word Wilson was an L shape, right? Short on this side, long on this side. Short on this side, long on this side. They're at the far end of the ward. They can't hear me out for help. I just have them flip the coin. drop down and grab the clicker. Even if I break my arm, the splint's gonna come on my leg. That's priority number 1, 2, and 3. Lower myself off the edge of the bed, crash down to heat, blankets, wires, cables, it's all a go. The arm holds, and I hammer the clicker, expecting the nurses to come bursting into the room like the bat signal we put up. They kind of stroll in 5 minutes later. What are you doing the floor, love? First of all, I say, that's a fantastic British accent. Where you say it from again? No, I didn't say that either. I said, let's see what splint off my leg, please. I'll tell you all about this. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to the matters. Right? It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to the matters. The reason why I'm telling you the story is I learned 3 lessons from this experience. The first lesson being, probably most obviously, let's not pass the clicker back and forth. That's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. Second lesson was let's tie the splint off of the hip, not the ankle. That way I can untie this should this happen forward. And the third lesson, and probably most profound lesson I learned, was let's always be solutions oriented from this moment forwards. When things go sideways in life, let's focus on a solution-based approach. How do you resolve your issue? How do you fix your problem? With the help of the splint, I was started walking the hallways with Wilson. Then came time to walk and Rootin' Tootin' Broadway, an area in South London. Tooting Broadway, before my stumbling words there. So let me set the scene for you. Tooting Broadway is an area in South London, an area they call up and coming. Think loud sirens, drugs, gangs. It's dirty, it's hectic, and boys are busy. I'm walking with a cane, I'm walking with an eye patch. After 4 months in a wheelchair, I'm literally Bambi on ice. I turn the corner to walk on the high street for the first time, immediately get slammed into by someone. Stagger back a few feet. Someone scurries past me on the right-hand side. I thought I was done with the rats. Someone had been stabbed on the sidewalk over here. I'm thinking this is a pretty wild place to learn to walk. After a few days of this, I was thinking this is the worst place to learn to walk in the world. Can't they see him trying to walk here? Can't they see him trying it? And then one day my perspective shifted. Maybe this isn't the worst place to learn to walk in the world. No, maybe it's the best. If I can walk here, I can walk anywhere. Now, Tooting Broadway didn't change, right? But it went from the worst to the best in my mind, and I'm reflecting that. What are you looking at in your life you're convinced is the worst? Convinced it's the absolute worst. Hey, maybe it is. Maybe you can find a way to turn down the suck a little bit, shift that perspective a little bit. Iron Mike Tyson famously said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Now, your punch may not be a brain hemorrhage, right? Facts. Hard facts. Will be a job loss, a breakup, a diagnosis for you or a loved one. You will take that punch in the mouth. How do you respond? I'm offering a compass, not a map, but a compass. It always points towards true north. We'll learn things like mindset, perspective, and hacks. Hacks that allow you and your team to be better than yesterday, tomorrow. My name's Dan McQueen, and the reason why I told you that story about learning to walk in Tooting Broadway, when you change the way you look at the world look at changes. And you don't need a brain hemorrhage to understand that. So eventually I was released from Wilson Rehab Center. 6 months after the initial brain hemorrhage, just in time for the Christmas party at Hootsuite. Friends Rob, James, and myself. Now, work. Where did I work? Hootsuite. This is my old support avatar on the support team, the Spaceman. Ground control to Major Tom. My mother often says that the doctor saved my life, but Hootsuite allowed me to get my life back. Now, I don't want to come this as across as blowing smoke. I want to shout out what Hootsuite did for my company, my family, my life. They did everything. When my parents first arrived in London, they had a prepaid cell phone provided by the company. Food delivered to the flat, knowing there would be long days at the hospital. Huge HR support. They told me I was there. They told me that I mattered, that there would be a spot for me when I got back on my feet. This was massive. Now, what is Hootsuite? Hootsuite is the most widely used social media management platform in the world. I worked on the professional services team, helping a wide variety of clients successfully use the tool. Now, I want you to know that when I came back to work, this was a work in progress, right? My occupational therapist worked directly with Hootsuite HR to kind of ramp up back at work. And we started with 2 half days to 3 half days to 4 half days to 4 full days. Capped it at 4 full days. I needed the fifth day to kind of recharge the batteries. Fatigue's a big issue with the brain drain. I worked with HR. They played ball with my needs and my limitations. Now, people ask me how I feel about my company. I no longer work at Hootsuite anymore, but I gave this for them at a keynote maybe 2 years ago, and I told this to them, and I'll tell it to you right now. I would walk through a wall for this company. When they're telling me and my family, we got you, man. We got you. Take your time. Get back when you can. I can't tell you the amount of support and loyalty that buys you as an organization. The care that you show. The doctors, mom says the doctors saved my life, but who's gonna let my life back? This was invaluable. This is so crucial. Hootsuite. Three horsemen of motivation. I just got back from Panama last month. My brother's wedding. Lovely wedding in Panama. I've not been. Wicked city, wicked country. And I found myself walking around the old quarter an afternoon with an idea to kind of go enjoy Panama and see what's going on. I found an old cigar shop. I don't smoke cigars, but I figured, hey, we're in Panama. Why not? Bought a stogie, had a macchiato, and I sat down and thought about, what my body of work is, how I communicate what my value prop is, and, how I transcribe my learnings to the group, right? And I arrived at this three horsemen of motivation. I've been watching a lot of Westerns, think Clint Eastwood. We're in a horse and buggy situation, right? You've got your buggy, which is where you want to be in all your valuable assets and your ideas. You want to bridle as many horses as you can to pull you in the right direction. And these horses represent motivation. The first one being proving you wrong. This is the first horse in motivation. So the way the nurse got me talking again, they took the tracheotomy out of my throat and they told my parents, he may not be a talker again. His vocal cords are fried. My parents had built this little dossier of like, who Dan is outside the injury. Dan's a sportsman. Dan's a world traveler. He's done a master's in Sweden. Here's his girlfriend Demi. Like they built this little package about who I am. And she read this package. She goes, "I'll get Dan talking again." She took me down to the park. Some kids playing football across the park. She goes, "Dan, those kids across the park, they don't think you're good enough to talk, Dan. They don't think you're good enough to talk." I found out pretty quickly that's a trigger for me. And I yelled across the park some profanities. I'll spare you and your team this morning. But needless to say, I found out what motivates me. Proving you wrong. Huge vibe of that. That's the first horseman of motivation. The second horseman is proving you right. My friend Claire came to visit me in London. A friend from Hydro back in the day. She visited me in London before she went up to Scotland. I was in a wheelchair when she came by the first time. Dan, you're working so hard. You're trying so hard here. It's good to see you progressing so well. You're rehabbing like a dream. Yeah, sure, I could make it look like I was rehabbing like a dream, but I knew in my heart I could push harder. I could do more. When she came back down from Scotland, I was walking. I'll be on the Zimmer frame, but I was walking from the wheelchair to the Zimmer frame. I wanted to prove her that I'm worthy of her praise, that I'm worthy of the accolades she's showering down on me. Proving you right's the second horse. The third one is service. Your success is my success. My success is your success. I share my story not to get the attaboys, look how good you are, Dan. Hey, look, there's probably some of that in there, I'll be honest. But so you can see what's possible given the odds and what the human mind can accomplish. Service is now my biggest motivator and biggest driver and biggest horseman. You can bridle all three to pull you towards your destination. The best success happens when you can bridle all three. Now, for you as an organization, how do you bridle these in a way that's helpful for your employee? Well, it could look like for proving you wrong to the employee. You go, well, maybe Jim, you're not ready for going back to this type of work just yet. We want to take it nice and slow. Give a nice soft target so we can rise up and meet the expectation and shatter the expectation. That's proving you wrong in a gentle capacity. Proving you're wrong can be showering praise on your employee. Jim, you know what? You've done a really good job here. We're really looking forward to it. You're such a vital asset to the team and the organization. We want to make this work with you. Whatever you need, we're going to accomplish that. And service. Remind them again how their job is of service to the organization and to the wider employee or the customer basis. That's how you can bridle this from your perspective. How to foster resiliency. Now, this is more for your employees than you, but your employees can foster resiliency by keeping promises to themselves, day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out. Alex Hormozi says, build a stack of undeniable evidence that says you do what you say you're going to do. And you do that for days, weeks, months, and years. I cold shower every morning. Well, I end the shower cold. Let's correct that. I end the shower cold for 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Every day, it's not a pleasant thing to dive into, but I do it anyways because I know that I can do that. I've done that for years. Every day, I kind of shudder at the thought of a cold shower, but I go through it. I prove that I can do hard stuff. I foster that resiliency. Goals. Now, this is crucial for me to accomplish getting back to the office. This took the form in the early days of getting in the wheelchair in 40 minutes, not 45, the week before, then 35, not 40, then 30, not 35. Incrementally ratchet up these wins to a point where I can be successful. But I want to share a story about learning to walk Stairway to Heaven. So I've been at Wilson Rehab Center for 2 months, and a chance for a home visit came up. Hadn't been home in 4 months, and I was really looking forward to a weekend back at home, a weekend out of that Drury Hospital. The only thing that stood between me and the way of having a home visit were the stairs to get back to my flat in Hammersmith. So one put it, oh, there must be 100. No, there's 44 stairs. 44 stairs didn't sound like much, but keep in mind I was freshly out of a wheelchair. That seemed like a rather tall order. Began training the stairs in the hospital, building my way to 44. 44 was all I needed to have a weekend away, a weekend out of that Drury Hospital. I set the school for myself where that was set for me. Come hell or high water, I was making up those 44 stairs back home. Eventually, over the course of a few weeks, I built my way up to 44 stairs and was let back home. Here's a picture of the last leg of those 44. Built the best BLT sandwich of my life at the top of those 44 stairs. But it was 44 stairs, not 100, right? Pick your targets and work towards that. Make sure the goals are within reach and valuable and hittable. AAA framework. So I built this framework about how you can navigate change, okay? It's acknowledge, accept, and adapt. Acknowledge the head. You got to acknowledge that you had, Dan, you had a brain hemorrhage, okay? You got to think it. Accept is the heart. That's like the real hard part about accepting stuff. And that's, see, I've had a brain hemorrhage, and you got to feel that. The third one is adapt. And this is how where the employer can come in with adaptations to their work environment. How you can help them navigate change in a way that's more relevant to their new predicament. For instance, for me, I got to navigate change every day now with, a shorter battery fuse. How to make key accommodations at work. And I created these hacks that I'll share with you briefly here. So hacks help me navigate back at work, right? And the first one was fika. So fika is Swedish for coffee break. Something I picked up while working or studying in Sweden. Sometimes I try to push through my fatigue at the desk and I not pass out, but I kind of fatigue and I'd be slumped over. And I get a bump from my colleague and, hey, Dan, you fatigued at the desk. And I'm like, oh, geez, I gotta get up for a coffee. And I get up, go for a coffee, stretch my legs, change my environment. Talk to my manager, let her know, hey, just so you know, like I got fatigue in my life. Sometimes it comes on pretty strong and I gotta go for a walk and get a coffee. I need you to be okay with that. Yeah, Dan, that's totally cool. Just don't miss any meetings, which I did occasionally, but for the most part, it worked out pretty seamlessly. Key accommodations like fika can allow your employees to be successful when they return back to work. If I didn't have this, I wouldn't be able to make it through a full workday without a break. Key accommodations, momentum. So momentum is so key for this, right? What I mean by momentum is like stacking wins, keeping things rolling. To start something from a dead stop is so difficult to do. If you keep it rolling, it's much easier to accomplish. Podcasts. There's a plethora of knowledge available on podcasts or audiobooks. I consume this at a voracious rate. I'd encourage you to get your employees to start expanding their mindset, get that growth mindset going. Why me, try me kind of vibes. Go from there. Now, better than yesterday's a vibe I approach and I vibe with. I've got a short survey here. We're going to give you 3 minutes to accomplish this, and we'll dive into the final story, asking questions about the session to kind of untangle what you found the most value in and go from there. So you open up your camera phone in your app, scan this QR code, and it'll take you to a short survey. Please do that now, and we'll continue the final story with 3 minutes to go, okay? Thank you so much. Yeah, just whatever stories kind of landed with you and what you found value in, like what was a different perspective that you didn't expect. I'm trying to improve my keynote speaking and trying to like understand what stories land with people. So having feedback from an audience like this is super valuable for me to understand what really drives and resonates change and shifts mindset and perspective. So 2 minutes left and we'll finish up with the final story, which is a relevant one, a recent one that we go through. Yeah. I'm conscious of time, so I'll dive into the final story. If you're still working on the survey, please complete it. But I'll dive into the final story and you can kind of piggyback on both for a second here. So the next step, if you've been watching me in the presentation today, notice I turn my head a lot to the left. That's because I had eye surgery on the left eye last year. And after 8 years of getting the pathways in my mind cauterized for the double vision I've got, it's undone everything. The double vision is not 1 and 1. It's 1 and 1's on an angle and one kind of pulsates. And after the last surgery, it changed the pathways entirely. My dad goes, Dan, do you regret having the eye surgery? I go, yes, it's changed everything. It's changed everything. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I don't regret having the eye surgery. I was taking the next step. Reminded by this book by Charlie Munger, The Boy, the Fox, the Horse, and the Mole. A boy's walking through a thick wood. He yells back at the horse, he goes, Dan. Or he goes, I can't see a way through. The horse says, can you see your next step? And the boy says, yeah. And the horse says, well, then just take that. That's what I was doing with the eye surgery. I was taking the next step. I was trying to improve my lot. You can't lose that muscle of taking the next step because that's when you settle for life. And I'm not going to settle for life. Push the boundaries. That's going to mean you're going to fail sometimes. It's going to blow up in your face sometimes. That's okay. If you're not pushing the boundaries, you're not doing life justice. The next step is where I'm at. I've just got cleared to have eye surgery in the left eye, hopefully in 6 months' time. We'll see how it goes. I'm not holding my breath, but hopefully we can improve it and make it a little less abrasive than it is now. I want to thank you for your time, and I'd love to dive into some questions now if we can.
Thanks, Dan. So we do have time for a couple of questions from the audience now. If you haven't already done so, can you please enter your questions in the Q&A box that you see on your screen? That'll be how we take in all your questions through the course of the event today. So Dan, to get us started, can you share what was the most challenging part of returning to work for you?
I think just getting the routine of going back to the office from the nerve trip world to the hospital to now being in the office at a certain time period and trying to manage my fatigue and make that work in a way that even if I didn't feel the best, I could still show up and give my best to the office. Adjusting to that new routine, and that's just like muscle memory, right? So let's just go 2 half days a week. Start small. Pick a small winnable target. Don't try to stretch like 2 full days. Do 2 half days. Just get the muscle of going back to the office. Get used to going back to that routine. So I suggest pick something small to aim towards and work towards that. And eventually we ended at 4 full days a week and a full client load. So I was pulling my end of the work, but I was not there at the office the whole time. So you got to make key accommodations, but just getting back to the office is the hard part. Thank you, Brandy.
Okay. And what was the best support you received to help support your return?
So I had a vocational therapist, Lisa Witten from NHS. She was my champion. She was there to fight in my corner with all the meetings. And I'd really encourage you to invite their OT, their occupational therapist, their vocational therapist to come in and sit with you in your organization. You don't need the consultants to do this for you, the KPMGs or the Deloittes or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, they're more bother than worth. But have the therapist there to kind of be in your corner and say, you know what, Dan can do the job, but he needs some key accommodations met. We settled on 4 half days a week or full days a week. That was a hard stop for me because I couldn't do 5 days. I need that day off to recharge and refresh. I picked Wednesdays to have the day off so it wouldn't seem like I was milking the system. But it was important to have that therapist there to be in my corner to push for me and help me support so the company could support me the best way possible.
Okay. Um, Someone would like to know if Hootsuite approached you to let you know they were willing to help, or did you have to initiate a conversation with them?
Hootsuite told me. Hootsuite went above and beyond. They let me know, hey Dan, you got a spot here no matter what. Whether it be in the team you're on now or the team you just moved from. We got you, brother. Take your time to get back up. That made a world of difference. The loyalty that bought you, like I got let go from Hootsuite 2 years ago from a corporate restructuring. Wrong side of a spreadsheet. I was sent packing. That's fine. That's business, right? My goal was to repay the company tenfold for what I was trying to do. I can honestly say I was trying to repay them tenfold for what they did for me and my family. They approached me. Be proactive. Tell the person you got them, I got you. We want you. You're valued. You're needed. You're important here. Make them feel like they belong and watch them conspire to make you successful.
Somebody else has asked, what other steps did Hootsuite take to show you that they really cared?
I mean, they had the prepaid cell phone, food delivered to the flat, visits from friends at work, telling me like, you got a spot here, Dan. Come back when you're ready. Don't rush it, but we got your spot here. That gave me something to aim for, a goal to shoot for, right? I got a job to go back to. I got a life to press play on. That made all the difference to me when I was in the dumps in the hospital. Because the hospital is a tough vibe to be in, right? It's not a real world situation. If you know you got somewhere better and beyond that's going to get back to life, like after this, is so important to have. Something to aim for, something to shoot for, something to strive for. Give them that North Star. Let them know you've got them. Let them know that they belong and you got them. That's a huge part of this part, belonging and feeling like you're important.
Okay. We have another attendee who wants to know if you have any suggestions to keep open communication with a worker during the return to work process.
I think try to get them involved with like a vocational therapist, occupational therapist off the hop. They should be synced up with them from the medical side and just invite them to have a conversation with the therapist present and they can kind of help broach the gaps needed to make this work successful. It's going to take some accommodation. It's going to take some juggling and some maneuvering, but like it's very much possible. And the loyalty and the passion you breed with a employee that you given a leg back up to get back to work is you can't count that. You can't count that. It's so deep. It's so loyal. Like I bled Hootsuite, man. I would walk through a wall for that company. That's not me blowing smoke. That's me saying how it felt, and that made all the difference. Hope that addresses the question.
Yep. I have another question here. I hope I'm interpreting it correctly. Um, what were your coworker interactions like as you ramped back up?
They were great. I mean, I was pretty, I had lots of friends before I went into this injury. I had a pretty popular guy in the office. I was employee number 20 in London, so OG status. They were great. They supported me. I might have nipped off a few relationships just by being a bit temperamental with my mindset of, the brain injury and not being the same self. And, I had to make some adjustments with my social life. I couldn't go partying as much as I used to. And, maybe that reflected poorly on my status in the organization. But they were there to support me and they made it seem like they cared. And they did care. So that was crucial. Back to social engagements was huge.
Okay. What was the frequency of your contact with your employer or HR during your recovery? And did you feel like it was frequent enough or not enough?
Initially, like, get better, Dad. Just focus on living. Wasn't a ton of contact, but I had a visit from the office, and my parents went to the office to go support them and see what's going on there. As we got closer to get back to work, then it ramped up more frequently. I think as you get closer to return to work, then you should increase frequency. But I think, like, once a month initially to once every other week to once a week to ramp it up as you get closer back to work, like in a linear scale, if that makes sense.
Okay. I think this will probably be the last question we have time for. Was there any support offered by your employer for your mental health status during this time?
Uh, Mental health status. It's tough to know what was sponsored by the employer and this the medical space I had in London, right? I had some conversations with counselors about how I'm feeling doing mentally and how I'm doing mentally. Um, and I passed their tests and I was cleared to go back to work and it wasn't an issue there. I kind of took ownership of that myself and really put an emphasis on like reestablishing relationships and going out for lunch and coffees and keeping those relationships strong. I wouldn't say Hootsuite was responsible for that. I'd say that was my own doing and the NHS's response, but certainly I don't think it would be looked down on if you tried that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dan, for joining us today and for sharing your story. I think I speak for all of us when I say we really appreciate it.